Previously on the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
Can you imagine the conversation with the GMs? They have this deal, and then the Minnesota GM calls up, and he's like, you know what? I forgot. I really wanted to give you this guy also. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll take him. We'll just give you, I don't know, future considerations. What is future considerations anyways?
No one knows. It could be cash. It could be like a bag of pucks.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
How are you, Skip?
Very good. What's happening?
A lot to talk about today, as always. But before we get into the show, I haven't really taken the opportunity to reflect on everything we've accomplished so far. I'm personally quite excited about all our accomplishments up until now. I think we're up to episode 24 or something like that.
This is 26, and we've
26.
had a couple of special episodes in there. So yeah.
So the episodes get better every week, and the amount of downloads increase every week as well. So That's also a good thing. And hopefully everyone out there listening is enjoying it and is entertained. And if there's stuff that we don't talk about that listeners want to hear, then please let us know, and we'll certainly include that into the show.
Yep. skipandjoshshow@gmail.com.
So the first thing I want to talk about, because technically March Madness, the tournament hasn't begun, but it is March. And already in the first few days of March, there have been some exciting games, and actually late in February as well. So as far as I'm concerned, March Madness has already begun. In fact, starting this weekend and going for the next, let's say, 8 days, all the conferences are going to have their tournaments, as you know.
Yep.
And some years, the conference tournaments are actually more exciting than the actual NCAA tourney itself.
They're great, the conference tournaments.
One thing I wanted to mention, I think it was on Wednesday. It seems like all the exciting stuff happens on Wednesdays. Northwestern played against Michigan, and the game was tied with 1.5 seconds left in regulation, and Northwestern was inbounding from their own basket, and the guy inbounding the ball threw a 90-foot pass to
absolutely incredible play.
Yeah, it was similar to the Grand Hill Christian Laettner play.
The only difference pass was 10 feet longer.
Yes, the pass was longer, and the shot wasn't as difficult because he was pretty much right under the basket.
Yeah.
But still, he had to catch the pass, set himself, and put up the layup. Now we can discuss for hours how it should have been defended by Michigan. They should have had a taller guy on the inbounder to make the pass more difficult. But Northwestern really needed that win.
If the guy's going to throw a 90-foot pass, I don't know, no matter is there a defense for that? I mean, it's only second guessing, they did what they did. They did what they thought was the right defense, and the guy made a 90-foot pass. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it was a great play, and Northwestern's never been in the tournament before, so it's a huge deal for them. A
lot of the NCAA insiders, the guys predicting who's going to be in the tournament, are saying now that they're going to make it for the first time ever.
Right. Now, they still have their conference tournament to play, and the only thing that could really hurt them is if they lose in the first round of their conference tournament.
Right.
So if they win at least one game in their conference tourney, then they should be in. But it was exciting, and as I said, I think technically Wednesday was March 1st, so March Madness has already begun officially as far as I'm concerned.
Well, for sure. I mean, definitely... for us, college basketball is we're following it from the beginning, but there's a lot of people who kind of just start to follow it around now, and then many people who really just start to follow it once the brackets come out. But it's certainly exciting for Northwestern. It's incredible. I mean, former Dookie, Chris Collins is the coach, which is great. I love that there's Duke alums all over the place. So it'll be a huge accomplishment if he can get them to the tournament. It
certainly will. And in other games, now technically this happened in February, but we haven't talked about college basketball since this happened. Gonzaga finally lost, which was surprising because I believe they were at home to BYU when they lost their game.
Yeah. Powerhouse BYU.
It seems like BYU beats Gonzaga once a year, sometimes twice a year. I don't know. I guess that team just has their number.
Right.
But everyone was saying if Gonzaga went into the tourney undefeated, they'd be the top number one seed.
Yeah.
Now with this loss, I still think they're going to be a number one seed if they don't lose another game. But they may not be the top number one seed. But look, if you're a number one seed, you're a number one seed. Does it really matter which bracket you're in? I mean, yes, there's always going to be one bracket or one region that's more difficult than the others.
Yeah, there's always one region that everyone, well, I mean, it's perception, right? Like we look at it and say, oh, this bracket's loaded. It's really difficult. And this side of the tournament's not so hard. But I mean, you still have to win the same amount of games. And, half the time, when people are looking at the brackets, they don't really know what's what.
Exactly. And I mean, as we were saying, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, back in the day, used to be that if you were a number one seed, your first 2 games were relatively easy and you would advance to the Sweet 16. But now, maybe the first game is easy, but by the second game on the first weekend, you're already playing a tough team.
Especially if you're a 2 or 3 seed and you have to play like a 7 or a 6 in the second game, that's not going to be easy because those teams are going to be tough. You're going to be facing, Florida State, I don't know, Butler, Notre Dame, like Wichita State. I mean, God, like teams that can run up and down the floor, or a team like Virginia who just plays ridiculous defense. They're a scary team to play in the tournament because their defense is so strong.
I'm glad you mentioned Wichita State. There was a year, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, where they were undefeated and they were a number one seed.
Yeah.
And they won their first game. And their second game was against 8-seeded Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, that was the year Kentucky they lost all their top 5 or 6 players. They were all like one and dones, and they kind of rebooted. But I mean, even like a down Kentucky year is still a talented team,
Exactly. So Wichita State lost in the first weekend of the tourney.
Yeah. Going back to Gonzaga though, if they are a number one seed and UCLA is also a number one seed, which it's looking like it could be, it'll be interesting to see who gets to go out west. Like they're 2 West Coast teams, but only one of those teams is probably Gonzaga, will get kind of screwed a little bit, and they'll have to go play their games, in another part of the country. Although I think the East West, all that doesn't factor in as much anymore the way they do the tournament, but
they try to keep teams close to home if they can.
Yeah.
But I think right now today, I think there are 3 locks there are 3 locks for the number one seeds. That's Gonzaga, Kansas, and Villanova. The only one in question, in my opinion, is the 4th one. And I think the 4th one is going to be either the winner of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Is it Pac-12 or Pac-10? I think it's Pac-12.
It's 12 now, yeah.
Or the winner of the ACC.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the winner of the ACC is probably going to be on the outside looking in, But
Now the thing is, if North Carolina wins the regular season ACC and the ACC tourney,
it'll be hard. It'll be hard to not make them a number one.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But if they win the regular season ACC, which I think they've already clinched a tie for that, but they somehow lose in the ACC tourney, then I think the Pac-12 winner might get that 4th number one seed.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly going to be an exciting finish to this season. And, our next episode, we discussed this off the air, but our next episode is going to be probably a complete NCAA basketball episode where we're going to basically go over the bracket in detail and make our picks and maybe have some guests on to make their picks and stuff like that.
Yes. Now, staying in the month of February, technically the last day of February, Duke defeated Florida State in a close game, 75-70, which, if you look at the schedule, may not have seemed like an important game because Duke is going to get into the tourney. However,
it was important.
It was important because, A, Duke had lost their previous 2 games to Syracuse and Miami, and B, Duke's next game tonight against North Carolina could also be potentially a loss. And so had they lost to Florida State as well, that would have meant they're going into the ACC tourney on a 4-game losing streak, which is not something you want to do.
No.
So that game versus Florida State this past Tuesday was actually quite an important game, and luckily Duke pulled it out.
Grayson Allen's injured. He came off the bench against Florida State. He didn't play very much, and tonight he's going to also come off the bench, I read, so he's not going to start. So they're limiting him. He's had this nagging ankle injury for, the last several weeks. So
And Amile Jefferson isn't 100% either.
No, he's not. So I mean, look, they're deep, but they had this touted class, of freshmen, and the freshmen haven't really had the impact that everyone thought they were. Tatum has, but Giles and Bolden have not, and they definitely need their full squad with Jefferson and Allen, going into the tourney. I wanted to talk about the Duke North Carolina game tonight, if you have a second about that.
Of course, absolutely. It's a huge game, and I won't be able to see it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, you usually do a what bugs me at the end of the episode. So this is so far beyond what bugs me. It's like what angers me. I'm so furious about this game because, Duke North Carolina to end the season. I mean, clearly it's like the biggest thing going on in sports tonight. And of course, 20, 30 million people in Canada cannot watch it.
Yeah.
We don't have it on TV. And
unless
it's
you buy
disgusting.
the college sports package with Bell.
So I was like, okay, Saturday night. I mean, Saturday night, it's going to be very hard to get it on TV in Canada because Sportsnet devotes all their channels to the Hockey Night in Canada. So right off the bat, that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
If by chance we could get it here in Quebec on one of the French channels, which they could happen during the week, also is not going to happen, mostly because of hockey. Mm-hmm. But like you talked about last week, TSN. So they've got 5 channels. So can I tell you what's on the 5 TSN channels tonight?
Please, because I haven't checked yet. So please tell
checked
me.
thoroughly. So one of the channels is showing the UFC prelims, which they do all the time. Whenever there's a UFC event, they show the preliminary bouts up to 10 o'clock that night or up till 9 o'clock, whatever it is. So I understand TSN's doing that. They have a deal with UFC, and this is what they do. But the other 4 TSN channels are all showing curling. So, like you said last week, we don't want to offend all the curling fans out there. Curling is popular in Canada. I get that. But it's on 4 channels. It's on all 4 channels. So you have no choice. And this great Duke North Carolina game is not going to be on. So I am going to watch. I'll find a way to watch it. But I mean, it just sucks.
I agree with you. I'm glad that I didn't look at the schedule earlier because that would have angered me as well. I knew that the game wasn't on. I didn't realize that TSN had the same sporting event on 4 different channels again. And TSN sometimes during the college football season on a Saturday afternoon will have 4 different college football games on. So they are capable of doing it. I'm not sure why they don't do it for other things.
Hi there, Skip and Josh will be right back. To get in touch with them, you can send them an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. You can follow them on Twitter @skipandjosh, and you can visit their website at www.skipandjosh.com. And now, back to the show.
So the next thing I want to chat with you about, I know that you went to the hockey game the other night when the Canadians played against PK Subban and the Predators.
Yeah, I did. I was there.
And also, luckily for me, normally the Canadians' Thursday games are not televised here. They're normally blacked out in Ontario. Mm-hmm. But I think because it was PK Subban, they did something special, and it was broadcast on, I don't know if it was on all 4 of the Sportsnet channels, but I was able to see it.
Okay, great.
So, of course, I watched, and, I don't need to tell you because you were there. The pregame ceremony was quite emotional, and not only even before the pregame ceremony, just for the warm-ups.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were in the stands, and as soon as he came out on the ice, we were there early in our seats way before everything started. As soon as they came out on the ice, it was PK, and the fans were cheering him, and,
And I saw a lot of Predators jerseys in the crowd on television.
Tons. There was tons of Predators jerseys and Canadian Subban jerseys, I reflected on this after and while the game was going on. I don't think in my life there's ever been a Montreal professional athlete as popular as Subban. I don't think there's ever been one, actually. I think he's the most popular athlete of our whole generation. And I mean, you'd have to probably go back to Guy Lafleur to get a more popular player.
I was just going to say, I remember when Guy Lafleur came back to play, I think as a New York Ranger.
Yeah.
And he got a nice applause from the crowd.
Yeah.
And I think he may have even gotten a point, Lafleur, in that game. And I don't know if the fans cheered at the time because
No, he
it was
got
such a
two
long
goals
time.
that game.
So he got 2 points then. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I was trying to listen, but I couldn't really tell when they were announcing the Predators' goal.
Yeah.
The play-by-play guy was talking when they said Subban's name. First of all, did the announcer say like PK Subban the way he would have said it
No, he
last
said it
year?
like normal. Yeah.
And what was the reaction from the
Everybody
crowd?
cheered. Everybody cheered.
Oh,
Subban got cheers the whole game, but then, in true Montreal fashion, and I think it was pretty fitting, in the third period, every time Subban touched the puck, he got booed,
I saw that. Yes.
which was great. I
Yeah.
think Subban will appreciate that. I think it's fine. You know, when Chara comes here, they boo him every time he touches the puck. When Crosby comes here, they boo him every time he touches the puck. It's like almost like a rite of passage. You know, you
Of
get
course.
the best player on the opposing team gets booed
Of
and that's
course.
fine. So I was telling my wife yesterday like how popular Subban is. I mean, I said Guy Lafleur, the only other player in Montreal history that I think might have been as popular maybe is Gary Carter, because he was like the height of popularity. I mean, he was incredibly popular here, you know.
Hmm.
And maybe later on, you know, Vladimir Guerrero, but it doesn't reach the level of what Subban is. And it's not just the popularity, it's the whole buzz around him, because of course there's millions of people in the city that love him, but there's this group of people that just hate him, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the polarity of the situation, you know, the love hate and everything that surrounds him, and the whole, basically the whole circus that follows him around everywhere he goes. It's just incredible. And one of the announcers on the post game show, one of the not announcers, but she's on the radio, Amanda Stein, who I really enjoy listening to. She really summed it up perfectly. She's like, it was like the closing of the book, so to speak. You know, everyone was mad, everyone was upset. There's lots of emotions. The season went along, and then that game on Thursday was kind of like the closure that everybody needed to sort of say, okay, it's done now, and let's all move on. You know.
That is a good summation of it.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, the Predators only come to town once a year, right?
Yep.
So and the second time is never as exciting as the first.
No, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure next time he comes to town, he'll get cheers and he'll get boos, but it'll dissipate. It will never reach what it did, you know, on Thursday. So
Of course, and there won't be a pregame video on the
no.
board, which was very nice. I'm glad to see that the Canadians did that. I know that the Predators did that for Shea Weber when the Canadians went to play in Nashville.
Yeah, but think about that. Shea Weber is basically the all-time number one player in franchise history of the
Right.
Predators, right?
So
Of
it was a
course,
big deal.
of course, they're going to do a video for him. PK Subban. I mean, it was great that they did the tribute to him, but they didn't have to. You know?
No, they didn't have to. And the other thing was they also didn't have to do it in the pregame. They could have just done it during a stoppage and play,
or like during the warm up or something, right?
when like a stoppage and play, like they did with Shea Weber when the broadcast was actually on a commercial break,
Yeah.
and so the viewers at home wouldn't even have gotten to see it.
Yeah.
But they made a point of doing it in the pregame when everyone's still paying attention, you know, just before the anthem and just before the Molson Cup presentation.
Yeah, the Molson Cup presentation. That's thrilling. God, what a stupid thing. God, it's ridiculous.
Well, it's a big deal for the players because I think sometimes they get bonuses if they win that thing a certain number of times or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay, good for them. I mean, Pacioretty won the Molson Cup player for February, so it's the only player that scored any goals.
Yeah.
So for two
The
periods,
Canadians actually, by the way, the Canadians, they had a terrible month of February. I don't need to tell you, but they were actually lucky to win that game against Nashville.
They're lucky to win all the games they've been playing. That was the most boring 2 periods, 2.5 periods. It was like you could have fallen asleep during that game.
I was going to ask you because
terrible.
I was bored at home and I was wondering, is it any more exciting if you were there?
So I happened to run into a friend of the show, Steve, who you know well, who was at the game. And I saw him during the second intermission, and he goes to pretty much all the games. He has season tickets, and he said all the games are boring. He goes even with Julien, it's more boring. But even with Terry, they are the most boring team because they don't score goals. They're not exciting. And now with Julien, it's like ultra defensive. But you know what? If they're winning, no one will care how everyone when they're losing, everyone's like they're not even playing exciting hockey. But if they're winning, no one's going to care what kind of hockey they play.
You know what I noticed?
It was a fabulous finish. I mean, the play that Byron made at the end was just unbelievable. So.
Well, what I noticed, I think it was in the middle of the second period, there was a shot of the Canadiens team bench.
Yeah.
And even the players on the team seemed like they didn't want to be there. It was the weirdest thing. Like, usually when I've played sports, when you've played sports, or when you watch games on television, you'll see teammates, chatting with each other.
Yeah, that's dead quiet, right? Yeah.
Or giving each other encouragement or giving each other tips. But at this particular instance, when the camera was on the bench, none of the players were even talking to each other. They weren't even looking at each other. They were looking straight out onto the ice, and they seemed so disinterested, as if they didn't want to be there. Now, that might have just been a certain point in the game, and it might not have been like that the entire time.
Right.
But that was surprising to me.
Well, there's nothing worse than a huge arena that's normally crazy loud and boisterous, that should give you tons of energy, that's dead silent. And that's what it was. I mean, that arena was dead silent for like most of the game. And it's really like, it's not fun to be there when it's quiet like that. So look, they won the game. They've won 5 in a row now or whatever, 4 in a row, but like all like squeakers, overtime. That was the first regulation win for Julien.
Yeah.
And but points are points, and all those wins is, look, 2 episodes ago I told you it was 50-50 to make the playoffs. Last episode I downgraded them, and this episode I'm going to upgrade them, because all these points that they've banked now are, it's really like looking like the playoff berth is going to happen. They'd really have to go into a horrible streak now to blow it.
I do want to talk about the 2 goals, because both goals were lucky goals if you saw them. I mean, I don't know how often they show the replays on the video board.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
at the arena.
Well, Gallagher's goal, I mean, he tried for a wraparound and he put it off the Nashville defense.
Exactly. So that was a lucky goal.
Look, Byron's goal, yes, it was lucky in that he got a very fortunate bounce off of like the shaft of his stick, to block the shot coming in.
But then not only that, like Pecorini actually knocked the puck into his own net after making the save.
Yeah, but I mean,
so both goals were lucky.
The fact that Byron was able to even get that breakaway is pretty incredible. Like, his speed is unreal.
Yeah, that was exciting.
But the shot that he got looked like it was right at him, and then all the next thing you know, it just kind of trickled into the net.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Canadiens were lucky to win that game.
And we'll see. They're playing the Rangers tonight, so that'll be another hard game.
Now, I do want to talk about Andrew Shaw, because he's been my whipping boy all season long. So I have a couple of things to say about him.
The new coach loves him because he's on the ice all the time.
Well, first of all, I have to give Andrew Shaw props for the goal he scored against the Leafs a week ago.
Okay.
I'm not only going to knock him when he does bad things, but I need to give him props when he does good things.
Mm-hmm.
So he did score a nice goal against the Leafs, and an important goal, and actually took quite a beating against the boards after scoring.
Yeah.
Good for him for doing that. I will say that. But then, of course, the real Andrew Shaw came back against the Predators, because their first goal was scored on a power play, and the penalty was Andrew Shaw's penalty. And if you saw the replay, it was a nothing play. Like, he got a penalty as he was going to the bench against a player that was also going to the Predators bench. And it was a nothing play. Like, there was no need for him to even come into contact with that player. It was just a stupid thing that he did. It led to the power play, which led to the goal.
There's no cure for stupidity.
So, I mean, I'm seeing that and I'm thinking, okay, maybe he'll be benched for the rest of the period.
No, Julien loves him.
But no, he's out there taking a regular shift.
He takes face-offs. They're transforming him into like a center now. I don't know what. Well, they're such a poor face-off team that they're trying anything to win face-offs, especially in the offensive zone. So it seemed like he was on the ice the whole game on Thursday. It's ridiculous.
He didn't miss a shift, but I mean, like, if he keeps taking stupid penalties, you can't keep playing this guy.
Well, I mean, they're going to have him on one line. They're going to have Gallagher on another line. They're going to have Ott on another line.
Well, that's the thing. You have Steve Ott now. You don't need Andrew Shaw. Only one of them should be in the lineup at the same time.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I'm sure they will be, but we'll see. I don't know how much all the new guys are going to play. I mean, everyone talked about how the Habs got bigger. They got bigger. They got bigger. You know what? On Thursday night, it was exactly the same lineup as the game before. The only difference is Dwight King played 8 minutes on the fourth line instead of Andrew Ghetto. Right?
Instead of Brian Flynn.
Yeah, or instead of Flynn. So for 8 minutes on a fourth line, you got one player bigger. Otherwise, the lineup was exactly the same.
Well, right, because the guys that the Canadians acquired are only like third or fourth liners. You're not going to touch your top two lines. Not that they're that good anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, we don't want to talk only about the Canadians. The Leafs got killed on the West Coast. They lost all their 3 games, one of them in a shootout. So they only picked up 1 out of 6 points on their little West Coast swing here through California. You know, they played like San Jose, Los Angeles, Anaheim, and
right.
And now they're right now they're on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. Like they've been in and out like all the time, but they're 1 point back of the Islanders right now. So, and the Islanders even have a game in hand. So they didn't do themselves, any good on that West Coast trip.
No, and listen, if I'm a Leaf fan, I'm not even upset about this really, because as I said, why bother, trying to squeak into the 8th playoff spot in the East or
so you
whatever
can lose
it's called.
4 straight to Washington, yeah.
Whatever. I mean, they might not lose 4 straight, but I mean, they're not going to win the cup this year anyway.
Yeah.
I would rather finish lower and get a better draft pick.
Sure.
Because it's not just one draft pick; it's every round you get a higher draft pick.
Yeah.
So I think there's 8 rounds in the NHL draft.
And the Leafs have proven that they're good at drafting. Look at all the guys that they have. Like
Lately,
obviously Austin Matthews was like a no-brainer. He was the number 1 pick. But, Mitch Marner, he was a high pick, but other, people had their doubts about him. He's small and he's really liked, in size. And like their prospects are either they're doing a good job of picking them or they're doing a good job of developing them or both. So they should want draft picks. They're doing well with them.
Yeah. You mentioned the Islanders.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard of this player called Josh Ho-Sang.
Yeah, sure. He got called up.
Yes. And the reason I bring him up is because have you seen what jersey number he's chosen to wear?
Yes, number 66.
Yeah. So this isn't what bugs me, but it does actually bug me.
They asked him about it, and he's like, yeah, I got 66, and at first I thought maybe I wouldn't take it, but I'm going to, he was a little bit arrogant about it, but what is he supposed to say? I mean, it's not a number. It's not retired by every team. He can take whatever number he wants.
But this is something I actually wanted to talk to you about a couple of months ago, and I didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Not specifically this player, but jersey numbers.
Okay.
Now, so I don't think anyone should wear 66. I mean, obviously 99 is retired by the entire league, and no one wears 99. Although I think Wilf Payman wore number 99, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, but yes, he did.
This Josh Ho-Sang, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly.
Yeah.
If I recall, in training camp this year, I think he arrived late or something to the first practice or the first team meeting, and so he hasn't even played an NHL game yet, and he's already, acting like arrogant and cocky, and
he thinks he's hot stuff already, right?
Exactly, before he'd even stepped onto the ice.
Yeah. And
so he didn't make the team, and now they just called him up. So he just played his first game, I don't know, this week or yesterday or whenever it was. And so now he's wearing this number. So basically it shows me that this guy is very cocky and arrogant. So he hasn't changed a bit. Now, look, if you back it up by actually playing well, that's one thing. But I would not want to wear number 66, just like I would not want to wear 99 or even let's say number 77, for example. Now, again, I know number 77 isn't retired by the whole league, but number 77 to me is synonymous with Paul Coffey and the Edmonton Oilers.
I was going to say Ray Bourque.
Okay, there you go. Well,
he switched his number.
He did switch.
Yeah.
And so there's a player on the Edmonton Oilers right now. I think his name is Clefbaum.
Yeah.
Who wears number 77.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm stunned that the Oilers, it's one thing if you're on the Canadiens or on Columbus or on Pittsburgh or whatever, but the Edmonton Oilers, how do they allow a player on their team now to wear number 77? I don't get that.
That's kind of ridiculous.
So I was just surprised to see that.
Well, Josh Ho-Sang, we wish you all the best.
We certainly do.
Hope you clean up your act and score some goals, because otherwise you'll be back in the AHL.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show. They don't take your calls.
So do you have anything bugging you today? I know I've kind of I told you how much I hate that the Duke game's not on tonight, and we kind of did some pseudo what bugs me, but do you have an official one?
I do have an official one, and we may have alluded to this in a previous episode, but it wasn't necessarily in the What Bugs Me segment.
You're getting me? Boy, are you bugging me, man? I'm gonna nail. Ooh, I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
It's the NHL playoff format.
Oh, well.
So
it doesn't just bug me, it's just ludicrous.
It really is, because right now, so obviously let's just to refresh everyone's memory. If you're the top 3 in your division, you make the playoffs, and then there's 2 wildcard teams.
Right.
So what's going to end up happening is, for example, Montreal would have to play
the Rangers,
and Montreal would have home ice advantage.
Yeah.
Except the Rangers have a better record than the Canadians.
It's crazy.
So if I'm the Rangers, I'm livid at this.
And not just that, it's actually favorable to be the Ottawa Senators and finish second in the Atlantic, so that you can play Boston instead of having to play the Rangers.
Exactly. So there's an easy fix to this, and actually the NBA does this properly. Even though I don't follow the NBA, they actually do this properly. Just take the top 8 in the conference, regardless of what division they're in, and rank them from 1 to 8.
The top 8 is the better way. It's the more fair way. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I understand the reasoning why the NHL switched to this format is that they want to create some rivalries in the playoff games. They want to have Montreal playing Boston or whatever the case is, or Washington versus Pittsburgh. They want to have those early round rivalries, which was great. Back in the day, didn't you love the old Adams division, right?
Actually, here's my complaint about that. I'm glad you brought this up, because then when, Montreal's playing Boston or Montreal's playing Quebec in the first round, if it's such a good rivalry, which it is, I'd like to see that in the second round or the third round.
It's true, because the NHL playoffs sometimes become anticlimactic. They get worse after the first round sometimes if your team's knocked out, right? Which half the team, pretty much, half the teams are knocked out after the first round.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So now, I mean, if you have these rivalries, as you say, and you're forced to play a team in your own division in the first round, so then the second round isn't as good and the third round isn't as good.
2 days ago when we were at the game, Matthew asked me how I feel about the playoff format, because he doesn't like it at all. And I said, I don't have strong feelings either way, but I bet Josh does.
Yeah. So, and look, this is it's going to help the team that I like, in this case, Montreal, because they're going to get home ice advantage. Although I'm not sure how important that is, because we've seen 8 seeds beat 1 seeds in hockey many times.
Well, of all the playoffs and all the sports leagues, the hockey is where upsets could happen. I mean, NBA, upsets are rare.
Right.
The 8s don't beat the 1s. The 7s don't beat the 2s. So in hockey, it's pretty cool because anything could happen. So you always have it's great for all the fans because you always have hope. Right now, every team battling for the playoffs is just let's just get in there because anything could happen. And the proof is anything has happened, right? So.
But I mean, if I'm the Rangers and I have to start on the road,
yeah,
I'm livid. And I think last year in the first round, did the Rangers and the Penguins have to play each other in the first round last year? I think
so. Yeah.
And they were 2 of the top teams in the entire conference. They shouldn't have to face each other in the first round.
No,
that's a second or third round matchup.
Yeah. Well, look what's going to happen this year. Columbus is going to play Pittsburgh.
There you go.
If the playoffs ended today, right? And those are 2 of the strongest teams.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to face each other in the first round. So that's crazy.
Right.
I don't understand. I mean,
not only that, let me tell you something. The Rangers are only 2 points behind Pittsburgh and Columbus. So anything could kind of happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if Pittsburgh falls out of the top 3 and they end up in that first wild card position? Canadians are going to play Pittsburgh in the first round. That's a nightmare.
And the Canadians are going to have home ice, though.
That'll be great.
And we haven't even talked about the West.
Well, it's a little bit more fair in that the 2 wildcard teams are not that good, right? Right now, it's Calgary and LA, and St. Louis and Winnipeg are, still trying to get in there.
So it's not as egregious.
It's not as egregious at all. So in the West, it's kind of working in how the NHL wanted, in that they're going to have some divisional games in the first round, right? Anaheim, Edmonton, and Chicago, Nashville. So
I think last year in the West, Chicago and St. Louis had to play each other in the first round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did.
And they were two of the top teams in the league at the time.
That's right.
So, we can't be the only ones who notice this.
No, of course. I mean,
people at the league office who make these decisions, or the board of governors or the owners, I don't understand why any owner wouldn't want to have home ice advantage if they have a better record than the team they're playing against.
The NHL, they always they want to play with the big boys. They want to be seen as part of they're part of the big four pro sports, but they're number four without any chance of becoming number three, right?
That's true.
And they constantly make weird decisions that, just kind of keep them as this more or less minor sport in the eyes of many.
I don't have the facts in front of me, but I think if you go back to the 1979-80 season,
yeah,
and I'm sure we can find this out. Now, granted, there weren't 30 teams in the league back then, but I believe that the playoff format that season was they just ranked everyone from 1 to 16.
They did.
And 1 played 16 and 2 played 15.
Yeah, there was not even East-West. It was just 1 to 16.
Right.
That's how remember the Canadians played the Oilers one year in the first round.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the reason they got rid of that is because they didn't want to have so much travel.
Well,
which
makes sense, right?
Fine. But still, at least if you finished first overall, you had the luxury of playing the 16th best team, which is what it should be.
That'll be great, yeah.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is back.
All right, I have a few things to wrap up the show.
Please.
Some kind of housekeeping stuff.
Okay, great. I love housekeeping.
So I don't know if you, all the people who follow our Facebook page, I posted an interesting link this week. Bill Simmons' website, The Ringer, staff posted the top 50 fast food items in America.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just I'll put the same link on our website, or you can check it out on our Facebook page. But I'd love all the listeners to check this out and comment on some of the Canadian items that could make it into this list. Let's say, it's full of American fast food stuff that we don't even have here, like In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A, stuff like that. And my son was thrilled because Popeye's Chicken was number 4 on the list. Huge.
They opened a Popeyes, a new Popeyes location not far from where I live. In case you guys ever come to visit,
we're gonna come for sure now. And so I'd love the listeners to put some Canadian items in there. Harvey's. Like, where does Harvey's rank in this? What about Tim Hortons? Random
Harvey's makes your hamburger a beautiful thing.
Or, random poutine situations. So, look, just to encourage the listeners to check that out. I also want to give a shout out to some listeners who are listening in who reached out to us from far away. So, Phil Murray, thank you for listening from Paris, France. And Jonathan Gomez, thank you for listening all the way in Chile in South America.
Pin them.
We'll send what? We'll send them out. We'll send some something from the prize closet. And just to remind everybody to give us a like on iTunes and give us a review, and follow and like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can get all the links and all the info on our website, skipandjosh.com. One more shout out to Jamie, who emailed us this week. Thank you for the idea of talking about he sent us an idea for something to talk about on the show. Maybe I'll post the link on our website. It's about a 7-year-old kid who got stripped of his bowling title because he didn't wear the right pants.
I read that story. It was a slow news day in Newfoundland.
I guess.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. It's probably the biggest controversy they've had in years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I forgot to mention something to you, and actually I should have mentioned this at the top of the show. It doesn't have anything to do with sports, but you know what's happening this Tuesday?
Tuesday. No? Tell me. Give me a clue.
Well, it's on television. It's not sports.
Victoria's Secret Supermodels?
No, I think I think that passed already.
Okay.
Actually.
What is it?
It's the season premiere of The Americans.
Oh, I can't wait. That's great. That's gonna be awesome. So I think we'll have to devote like 2 to 3 minutes on every coming episodes to The Americans, right?
Well, I'm not going to be able to watch it live. I don't get FX.
Neither do I, but there's gray market.
I usually wait till the season's over and I watch it. I binge watch it.
Okay. Well, if you want to do that, that's fine. Otherwise, I can get the episodes and share them with you each week.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that to start. It's going to be great. I actually was going to start watching Homeland season 6 last night, but
I think they're on episode 6 now.
they are. I
haven't
didn't
seen any.
start yet. I had to catch up on The Bachelor.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Have a good week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.